Christina.
Good morning. Good morning, all. I can now confirm that it is 10 o'clock and we are ready to start the meeting.
Good morning and welcome to the Licensing Subcommittee of the 25th of August 2020. I would like to advise that this is a live virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, and today we'll be using Zoom to provide a live stream to members of the public. Please can we ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections, and sometimes this can cause a slight delay.
Thank you, Chairman. During the meeting, all participants except for the Chairman will be muted, and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have been asked to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind you that should you wish to speak during the meeting, use the raise hand button which can be found at the bottom of the participant's screen. The Chairman will then be notified of your request. When speaking, if we could ask you to unmute yourself to speak and then mute yourself once you have spoken. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within the report's agenda for ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting, the Chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of adjournment. Those that have made the licensing officer aware that they would like to speak at today's meeting will be called forward to speak at the appropriate time. Please, can we ask you to speak loudly and clearly? Once members have completed the process of hearing all representations, they will then move into a confidential debating session. The decision will then be heard in public via a further Zoom meeting. This decision meeting will be available for viewing from 12:30. Chairman, we will now complete a roll call of members present. Councillor Wells.
Present.
Councillor Brian Walker.
Present.
Councillor Bensley.
Present.
I will now advise of officers present. Elaine Hignett, Licensing Officer, who will be presenting the application to the committee. David Lowens, Solicitor, NP Law, and Christina Webb, Executive Services Officer. Adam Yardley is with me for IT support. We have Mr. Thurston, the applicant, in attendance at the meeting, speaking on behalf of the application. We also have Mr. Harwood, objector, in attendance at the meeting, speaking against the application. Thank you, Chairman. We can now start the agenda items.
Thank you, Christina, and a welcome to Mr. Thurston and Mr. Harwood. So item 1, we have apologies for absence.
Chairman, I confirm we have received no apologies for absence this morning.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Bensley, I see you're indicating.
Just a personal interest that I know the applicant through tourism industry.
Right, thank you. Just to remind Councillor Bensley, if just because I can't see everyone on the pictures, hand up in that time I can see your picture, but if you can try and do the raise hand in the bottom right, that will make sure I'll definitely see it, because I'm not seeing everyone's pictures all the time, if that makes sense. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so we're now moving on to item 3, application for a new premises license. The committee are asked to consider an application for a new premises license under the Licensing Act 2003, which is for an outside area, a front beer garden of the first and last Yarmouth Road, Ormsby, St Margaret, Great Yarmouth, NR29 3QH. And I will now pass over to Elaine Hignett to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a new premises licence submitted by Hurston Hospitality Limited in respect of the front beer garden of the first and last Yarmouth Road, Ormsby, St Margaret. A burger van is situated in the licensable area of the premise. The application proposed the following licensable activities and timings. Recorded music, indoors and outdoors, from 11 AM to 11 PM each day. sale of alcohol on and off the premises from 11 AM to 11 PM each day. The application is to be found on pages 6 to 26 of the agenda. It should be noted that the licensable area of the premise is shown on the plan accompanying the application as edged in blue. 8 representations were received objecting to the application. 2 were from responsible authorities, being the police and environmental health. 5 were from local residents and 1 from a local business owner. Agreement has been reached between the applicant, the police and environmental health. This has resulted in a number of proposed conditions to form part of the licence if granted. The police agreed conditions are listed on page 37 of the agenda, and health's agreed conditions are listed on page 39. Both authorities have withdrawn their objections. Copies of the remaining objections are detailed on pages 28 to 36 of the agenda. One of the objectors, Mr. Harbord, has advised us that he is attending today. Thank you.
Right, okay. Sorry, thank you, Elaine. Right, okay. Members, do we have any questions for the licensing officer?
Just one, please, Chair.
Of course, fire away, James.
Yeah, you say the police and the environment have given no further objections because the applicant has met all of the agreed conditions as such, and you say they've withdrawn?
Yes, if you look on pages 37 and 39 of the agenda, both responsible authorities have suggested conditions which they feel that if they are included on the licence, if granted, they fulfil their concerns in relation to both the police and health, really. So they are, you see, health have 5 conditions that they have listed, which the applicant has agreed to, and the police have 4 conditions.
Okay, lovely job. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Walker, do you have any questions? I'm happy. I don't have any myself. So, right. I think, yeah, okay. So moving on to the next stage of the process, I now will be inviting Mr. Thurston to make a short opening statement, whereupon members and the objector will have an opportunity to ask questions to Mr. Thurston as it pertains to the licensing application. So, Mr. Thurston, are you ready to begin?
Yes, I haven't prepared a speech as if it were. I've just, I think the licence application does speak for itself. We are a family restaurant selling family food to families and other people, and we just want to add a bottle of beer or a glass of wine to that. Most of the people that we're having, we had a section, a temporary event notice. So for a time we were serving alcohol. The people that came along only had 1 drink with their food. We're not catering to large groups of football fans making rowdy noises. I don't think that the alcohol licence will make any difference from a bystander's point of view to what is happening there already. I see some of the objections were about the background music that we're playing, but you know, I would like to draw attention to the activities that are happening at the Grange pub next door. They're having live bands, they're having barbecues in the garden. They're attracting a large number of people on their, especially on their Thursday bikers nights. A lot of the car parking complaints we've had have been from people that actually parked in our car park to use the Grange facilities. So I don't see how us being able to sell alcohol is going to make the situation any worse in any way. We're actually we're not as busy as them. We're catering for less people. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have Mr. Harbord? What I'll do is I'll ask members to ask questions first, and then we give you an opportunity to also ask questions. Do members have any questions they wish to ask? Councillor Walker.
On the music side, you said that obviously the Grange has it. Would you be prepared to put a noise restrictor on and get the public health to set the level?
Absolutely. We do mean background music. It's actually quite quiet. And I would like to say we don't want to be a nuisance to the community. We're a long-established business. Admittedly, we only took over the Yankee Traveller last year, but the history of it goes back almost 50 years. We're not in the business of upsetting people. We're looking to expand the restaurant into other locations similar to this. So we want to get it right for the long term. So absolutely no problem at all with putting a limit on our music.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Councillor Bensley.
Thank you, Chair. No, just they're meeting all the environment, as I discussed earlier with the officer, the environment and the police objections. As I said, a noise limiter would be lovely.
Just to clarify, this is a question stage at the moment,
yes,
rather than statements. Sorry, James.
No. I just have concerns regarding parking issues. That'd be my only concern.
Right.
Yeah, we have a very large car park at the rear of the building. We've installed over the last couple of weeks signs to ask all customers to use the rear car park. I know that some people have been pulling in front of people's houses, which when we've seen that, we have asked them to move. Again, it's not something that we promote, especially when we've got a car park that could probably hold 50 cars at the rear. There's no need for us to encourage people to park inconveniently for the local residents. So again, we've already installed the signs. We're only probably getting 20 customers at a time on a busy day, so we've got more than enough car parking to meet our needs.
Right. And just to follow up on that question from Councillor Bensley, have you had any interactions with Norfolk County Highways in relation to any parking issues or anything like that, or has there been no contact from them on that side of things?
No, we've had no contact from them. Like I said, we've got a massive car park, so yeah, I don't see anything at all.
Okay, thank you. And I can see David Lowens wishes to speak, so fire away.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just putting down the hand. Yes, I'm not sure how knowledgeable the applicant is regarding licensing. A question was put regarding a noise limiter, and I don't want the applicant company to find themselves surprised. So just to point out the legalities, we need to know whether the applicant company is amending their operating schedule to introduce a noise limiter now, regardless of the result of the committee decision. Because if it is from the applicant, it is fixed and cannot be appealed. If it is imposed by yourself, it is not fixed as it can be appealed. And the applicant needs to be clear if he is saying, I will operate all recorded music via a noise limiter device, level set by environmental health, that will be an obligation and a criminal failure if he doesn't do it. So the applicant needs to be clear, is he offering a noise limiter as part of his operating schedule?
The only issue I've got with putting a noise limiter in place, as I've said before, we only intend to play background music, and it can be set by environmental health of what is a safe and manageable level. But my problem would be that when the Grange have their live music on, that it would actually set my limit over the top, because they've got live bands blasting music through large speakers on a regular basis. So that would have to be taken into consideration.
A couple of things, Chair. Firstly, the applicant hasn't actually answered as to whether he's going to impose a noise limiter or not. And secondly, this is your committee on this application and not a consideration of the Grange.
No, we all appreciate that. So from your point of view, Mr. Hurston, is at the moment your position that you would be happy to amend your application now or not. And as I said, it's not my place to make a judgment as to whether it's your decision on that, because obviously Mr. Lowens has laid out the legal concerns on that aspect.
And again, I have answered this question because I've got concerns that the noise from next door is going to put me over my legal limits. So that puts me in a very, very awkward position.
Yeah.
I know I can manage my limits, but they're going to, you can hear that music very loud on the first and last site. So that's going to cause a massive problem if I agree to putting the limit on.
Chair, my understanding then from the words used, if I agree to put a limiter on, is that there's no current agreement to put a limiter on.
That would be my taking as well. But obviously, please disagree with me if I'm wrong there, Mr. Hurston.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, the answer's no then, yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, right, okay, thank you for that side of things. Have we got any further questions from members? Right, okay, Mr. Harbord, have you any questions you wish to address the applicant? Just to reiterate the point, but I'm sure you do appreciate that this is questions relating to the application as is on the paperwork rather than wider questions, if that makes sense. So if we can try and stay focused on the matter at hand, so to speak.
Mr. Chairman, the biggest concern is the safety of the public. In your paperwork, you put a maximum of 60 customers, which could equate to 30 cars or more. Now, Mr. Thurston has made a remark that he's put signs up to use the car park. Well, I think this is circumnavigating the question because the sign he's put up is so small you can't read it.
Right, just very quickly to interrupt, Mr. Harbour, just to explain, you will have an opportunity to do your own formal presentation after this stage. So if we could try and be more specific on the direct questions rather than wider statements, if you see what I mean.
Right. The car park that Mr. Thurston goes on about is very small. The majority of the land is covered in vegetation. So it can't be used as a car park. It's what area is available is being used as a skid pan by young motorists, and all the rubble that was put in when the houses were pulled down is now coming to the surface. So it's not really an ideal car park.
Right. So do you have a specific question you want to ask Mr. Thurston to try and respond to?
Well, yes, I'm saying that he's saying he's put a sign up. I'm saying that's too small to read.
Right. Well,
there's no sign on the car park.
Right.
This is the first and last car park.
Mr. Harbour, would it satisfy you if I put a larger sign up that was more readable for you?
Would it satisfy you if there was a larger sign?
Yes, that's what you're supposed to do.
Done. I'll sort it out tomorrow. No problem, mate.
Right. Okay. Any further questions, Mr. Harbord?
Yes. You've made a statement that the environment and the other committee had withdrawn all their objections. But to me, there's a lot more questions that are relevant that you're not allowing me to ask. And one of them is, in an emergency for the residents and the road is blocked with cars, is there a plan to get emergency services in? Because the escape route has been blocked by the applicant.
The developers.
Developers.
Sorry, we're not blocking anything. If there is a blockage, it's by members of the public, and we will put some larger signs in. The rear car park is perfectly suitable for the amount of cars that we attract. You know yourself that I've got photographs that I can show everybody. When the main problems we're having is when the Grange put their nights on them and attract hundreds of cars. We're only attracting a handful, a dozen at a time.
But it doesn't alter the fact that if there's an emergency at the far end of the road and your end is blocked, how do the emergency services get in?
I've never witnessed that the road has ever been blocked. The only thing I've seen is cars parking on the side of the road. But the road itself has always been unblocked, so an emergency vehicle could get through. I've not witnessed that at all.
That doesn't answer the question, does it? I asked you, is there an emergency plan?
Or an emergency vehicle to get to you?
Yes.
Yes, we keep.
I'm not the only resident. There's other residents.
Yeah. Well, the road will be kept clear. We'll put the bigger sign up for you to make sure that all our customers use the rear car park.
Okay. If I'm just to intervene at this point, just because there was quite a nice natural flow, I was quite happy for that to go through. But if people could please, if Rick could ask the question, then I'll invite Mr. Hurston to respond in that sense, just in the dialogue things. I had no objection to what went through there because it was a nice natural flow on that side of things, but it is important we do try and go through the chair, please. So, Mr. Harbour, do you have any further questions?
Chairman, the second part of my objection is the disregard for the rules and regulations. What appears to be electrical cables running from this caravan to the first and last are running on the ground. This is a potential hazard for the staff. The wastewater is being run in an 1.5-inch pipe over a fair length and injected into public drainage.
I'm ever so sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Harbord. Mr. Lowens, who is the solicitor, has raised his hands, and so I'm just going to ask him to very quickly interject in case it's legally, because it may be pertinent immediately.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want Mr. Harbord to become frustrated, but he needs to be aware that your committee must consider licensing matters and this application's licensing matters.
Yes.
So questions about wastewater, you cannot sensibly deal with. Questions about electricity cables, if true, perhaps a matter for health and safety, but not a matter for yourself. Okay. Public safety is to be considered, obviously, but
through
public safety relating to the licensing application.
Right. Okay. So with that information in hand, Mr. Harbord, and I would reiterate the point that you are going to have an opportunity to make a wider statement shortly. Have you any specific questions which relate to the licensing application?
No.
Right. Okay. Very well. Moving on to the next stage, it is now, Mr. Harbord, your opportunity to make your full statement. So please fire away at your leisure.
I would just say to your legal man, yes, I am frustrated because there's lots of issues around this application that need to be investigated before you have alcohol-filled people around there. We didn't really get an answer about the car park and clearing the vegetation so that is suitable for a large number of cars. We haven't had an answer about the emergency vehicle plan. We talked about it, but nobody said there is a plan or there isn't a plan. And what we need to remember is this road, although it's a former part of the A149. It's still a public highway, and it's used by heavy traffic. There's oil tankers, refuge lorries, all sorts of things. So we have to bear that in mind when we come to safety. The tables and seats in one part of the area are on the boundary of the road. So if you slide out of your seat, you're still walking into the main road. That's not on. There's a toilet there for the public, and if you open the door on the toilet, straight into the main road. Accident waiting to happen for children, I would have thought. There isn't an extraction fan on the cooking unit in the caravan. Now this, the smell that comes out of that caravan is obnoxious. Why has that been allowed to operate without a proper extraction fan on it? Fortunately, I'm on the west side of it, so I only get the smell when there's an east wind. But there are several residents who are in direct line with this smell. And in my opinion, that's wrong to let that carry on. And does it not infringe on the Clean Air Act? And it's a matter of interest. Should I cause a smell in the course of my business, which is only 100 yards away from the first and last, I'm liable to prosecution. Is Mr. Thurston liable to prosecution if he causes a smell? I don't think so. That seems how there's one law for the tourist industry and one law for the locals. What was that other thing we had here? By the way, the noise from the Grange seems to have stopped at 9 o'clock at night. Although there's still a nuisance, but there we are.
I don't know what you're looking for, Dad.
The other thing is, which was a serious issue, are the gas bottles that are standing between the caravan and the first and last public house. Now, they don't appear to be locked up at night. Now, I don't have to remind you of what happened in Stowmarket over the weekend with a gas bottle going to a burger van. Serious issue. I've mentioned it to my local councillor. I've put it in this objection. Nothing done about it. I think you'll find that 4 of those £47 gas bottles could cause a heck of a lot of damage and be a problem to life. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Harbord. The solicitor, David Lowens, just wishes to briefly speak, to be fair. Oh.
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman. The objector in his written concerns mentioned noise from music, and he hasn't really addressed you on that. He's not legally represented, so I flag that opportunity to him now.
I will agree that the noise since my letter was sent in has been reduced. So that's why I haven't mentioned it.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Harbord. Have we any questions from members?
No, Chairman.
No. So we've had no indication of questions from Councillor Walker or Councillor Bensley. I have one quick question, which I think has already been answered. I was going to ask into relation to whether there has been noise direct complaints raised, but the objector appears to be indicating that that particular issue appears to have been mitigated. Is that a fair assertion then, Mr. Harbord?
Noise has been about it.
Right,
Didn't
okay.
say anything about the other noise of the motorbikes and goodness
Yeah.
knows what.
But you're referring specific, so you're saying, but the specific music from the burger van it has been reduced. Okay, thank you. Mr. Thurston, would you like to ask any questions of Mr. Harbord?
No, I haven't got any questions for him, but I am willing to meet with him on site, and if there's anything that we can do to make it more comfortable for him as a local resident, I'm willing to do what I can. So we're all been here for the long term. Some of the points you did mention about electrical safety, we've had it professionally installed with a certificate, and environmental health have checked out the gas bottles and everything else. So we are willing to work with the local community on any matters they may have, regardless of this meeting. And so that's all I've got to say.
Right, and okay, thank you for that. Okay, so continuing through, so that's the end of this formal aspect of the session. So we will be shortly closing the meeting, and then the members will be moving to a private debating session whereupon a decision will be decided, and then we will have a further Zoom meeting at 12:30.
Chairman, just to interrupt, sorry, we've got to
Oh,
have
sorry, closing statements. Sorry,
yes.
I do apologise. I'm skipping ahead. I do apologise very much to everyone. So everyone has got. We now have the opportunity to do closing statements. Thank you for that, Christina. So the first person to be invited to do a closing statement is Mr. Harbord.
I asked some questions. There are no answers. How do I get to a higher level of authority to get something done?
Right.
Nearly every question I asked, I didn't get an answer.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so as I'm sure you appreciate, I can't, this committee is not there to deal with some of the aspects of the question being raised, but what I would strongly suggest is you make contact potentially with your local borough councillors after this meeting, and they can hopefully help and assist you to progress those other aspects of those concerns. Have you any statements you wish to make in relation to the licensing application in addition for the members to consider? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Mr. Thurston, your opportunity to do your closing statement.
All I'd say is that the Hurston has been a pub serving food and drink for over 100 years, and albeit we are serving from the burger van at the moment because the inside of the pub is derelict. The activities that we're proposing are no different to the activities that the building was purposely built for. The tables and chairs out front that have been there forever. I've got photos from the 80s and 90s with them. It's been exactly the same thing. We're asking for an alcohol license at a pub. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will be moving to close the meeting and move to the private debating session, and the further Zoom meeting will be convened at 12:30 to deliver the decision. Separate to the meeting, I do hope, and whatever decision made, I do hope, Mr. Thurston, you are able to, and Mr. Harbord, you do potentially have a meeting to discuss some of these other issues which were raised not pertinent to the licensing application. And says so apart separate to that, we will now move to close the meeting. Christina will deal with the logistics of that aspect.
Members, if I could ask you to wait until I advise that the live stream has stopped before we move on to the debating session. The live streaming is now